Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies, I don't think there are any ladies that listen to this podcast, so it's really just gentlemen. And even that's giving you guys too much credit. Nah, I'm just kidding. Hey, this is the last old school TMP I'm going to... I went all southern there. I'm going to upload on this channel. And this one's a good one. This one features Hellpockets back from May of 2020. And yeah, Hellpockets, longtime personality in the fighting game community. Great commentator, overall great guy. Super funny too. I remember laughing so much on this podcast. He's just really charismatic, really funny guy. And yeah, it was just a fun talk. We talked all about his journey with fighting games, just general gaming. This was also during a bit of a delicate time during the pandemic, as well as the George Floyd thing that happened in 2020. But yeah, we talked commentary, we talked his fighting game experience, we talked everything that I could think of to talk to a guy like Hellpockets. So yeah, it was a fun conversation, and with it marks the final old school TMP I will upload on this channel. Hopefully you guys enjoyed some of those old episodes, a little blast from the past, and hopefully you like what's coming in the future. Anyway, without further ado, here is Hellpockets on TMP. So obviously I know who you are, but for anybody that's listening that doesn't, did you want to kind of do a self-introduction? Who is Hellpockets?
Who is Hellpockets? So I am a guy from San Francisco, California, who loves video games, has loved video games all his life, and developed an especially deep affinity for fighting games. The moment I laid hands on Street Fighter 2 back when I was it's like 7, 8 maybe. Yeah. When that came out in like 91, I think. So yeah, I was probably around that age. Or at least maybe 11. I don't know. I was a kid and I didn't know what I did. Like everybody seemed to have, a way of kicking my ass because they were all adults and whatnot. And I had no idea what I was doing. So I grew up playing that game and getting better at it and whatnot. And that, grew into a competitive desire. Once I got competent, and that competitive desire became a competitive, not really a career, because back then there wasn't esports. We didn't have things like we had the Battle of the Bay. We didn't have Evo as it's called right now, and we didn't have even Major League Gaming wasn't a thing back then. So you just show up to the arcade and play people for money.
Nice. And
from there, I became a commentator, which is where most people are probably going to know me from. My work for KOF 13 at Evo 2012, 2013, Guilty Gear Exert in 2015 and 2016, KOF 14 and 2016, 17. Man, I've done so many Evos.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other major events surrounding that. And I've worked on a lot of different games, the game tournaments. So yeah, I've gone a pretty long distance from the kid who couldn't do Hadouken in the arcade.
Yeah, okay. So you're just wondering, since you're on the West Coast, how's the quarantine over there? Because here in the Midwest, it's starting to get a little laxed, which I'm not a big fan of, but...
Yeah, I heard some stuff was going down over there this week.
It's not good.
The quarantine out here, especially in San Francisco, is pretty much holding to the standard that has been set by not only the government, but the public. The public has been very adamant about, we got to follow these guidelines because we definitely believe in the science,
Mm-hmm.
It's not about how uncomfortable things are. It's about, it could get a lot more uncomfortable if we fuck up.
Yeah, for sure.
In San Francisco, and I don't know if this is going to be the topic of the show, but I can go on for hours about it. In San Francisco specifically, there has been a little bit of a pushback from the community of citizens who aren't native San Franciscans. A lot of people came to San Francisco not too long ago for the tech industry and the opportunities that it provided.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why tech settled in San Francisco was because it was so vibrant and had all these different cultures and great places to eat and nightlife, and it was a cool place to live. But with COVID quarantine in effect, a lot of that stuff doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
You don't get to go to your favorite burrito spot and just wait outside in a long ass line at lunchtime for what's really a great burrito, so it's worth it. And there's no like, the barcades aren't open. Like all the adult children aren't allowed to go to their little playgrounds. And I miss it too. I thought those were awesome. And so because of that, people are starting to abandon ship. A lot of homeowners are selling their property for exorbitant prices. It's looking like there could be a mass exodus out of San Francisco, at least when it comes to the tech industry class.
Wow, that's crazy.
So, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's not something that's being discussed very much, but if you go on Zillow right now and look for San Francisco listings, like a ton of houses are up for listing, and they were all listed like within the same couple of weeks, and they're all like 2 million, 4 million. And I mean, and we make the joke like, well, who can afford that? The only people that can afford that are the people that are selling it.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, yeah, San Francisco's like, isn't it the most expensive place to live in the States, or is that New York?
I heard we topped New York a couple of years ago, but I think it fluctuates.
Yeah.
I feel like they're in a competition with each other where one landlord's like, oh, they're doing 3.5 in San Francisco, 3.6 in NYC.
It's like an auction.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Here in the Midwest, it seems to be where the people have kind of, the inmates are running the asylum. It's just like the first week of quarantine, be like, everybody's wearing a mask. Are you going out? Now it's like maybe like 2 people. It's like, okay, what's happening?
Yeah. Whereabouts did you say you were at?
I'm in Missouri, so around
Missouri, okay.
St. Louis
okay.
area.
Yeah, I got a couple of friends in Minnesota right now, and they were, one of them actually works for transit, so she was kind of not a part of, but was one of the people that they were calling when the original protests for George Floyd was going down. And so she's been kind of dealing with a constant stream of just madness ever since. Either it's protests or riots, and apparently last week somebody just shot up a group of people in the middle of downtown Minneapolis.
Jesus.
And I was like, yeah, man, what the hell is happening in the Midwest, man?
2020 has been the wackest timeline so far. It's been so...
For sure, man. Like, we're paying for something.
Yeah, we are. This is back pay.
2021 should be awesome.
Yeah, hopefully. King of Fighters 15, please.
Please. Oh, my God.
With rollback.
I'm going to say right now, since you mentioned it, rollback definitely is, even if the developers don't necessarily believe in it, and many of them do, I think that it will become the standard soon because of COVID-19, because of the quarantine, because all these events are getting canceled and they're having to go online, you're having one embarrassment after the other.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter. I mean, I don't really follow Smash, but I just saw that somebody put on Dolphin rollback for Melee.
Oof.
So, I mean, Melee has rollback now, but Tekken 7 has what, I don't know what Harada said, but like it's got 3 frames. 3 frames of what?
We always had rollback. What are you talking about?
Yeah, So really 2019 and now 2020 with, the movements and everybody talking about good netcode here, good netcode there. I'm really optimistic for the future for good online experience. I can't wait.
I think so too. I think right now we are suffering it had to happen, because if 2020 it went down the way it would have, if COVID hadn't been a thing, nothing would have changed in our view. We would have still been hype. It would have been a great year. I think we probably would have got some announcements that might have been delayed because of the quarantines, and that would have carried us into 2021. But we wouldn't have touched netcode.
No,
it would fall in the grace of the developers.
I was talking to Mike Z, and he was saying that, rollback is a thing where you can't just tell somebody, like, go play rollback, because they'll be like, oh, whatever, I'll just go play my favorite game. You really have to experience it, and then once you experience it, you're just like, man, I don't know if I can go back playing Delay.
Hey, I'm living proof, dude. Like, I've been playing the caster version of Melty Blood and Them's Fighting Herds for the last couple months, and I haven't touched Samurai Showdown or KOF 14 or Street Fighter 5 or Tekken 7 or anything else. I haven't touched anything else that doesn't have rollback netcode, functioning rollback netcode. Let me put it, I know technically Street Fighter 5 has it, but as we saw last weekend, it's not exactly the best situation.
Yeah.
And that's one of those embarrassments I was talking about. You have like the official esport competition for a game, the champion and one of the runner-ups DQ themselves because they don't want to play a guy who's got high ping.
Man, that is really embarrassing. I mean, your reigning champion refuses to play the game because of the online infrastructure. I mean, that's just that's
That's rough.
Not a good look at all.
Yeah, I thought it was bad enough that when Evo had to shuffle the arrangement around, that they just cut out all the main games. I was like, damn, dude.
Yeah, that's
the wake up call.
That is definitely the wake up call. That's why I thought. I mean, I honestly, like, I used to play the crap out of Unist and Uniclair and Tekken 7, and then ever since I was just like, man, the COVID hit, and I'm always home. I'm just playing online. I can't play Under Night anymore because you can't find anything that's under 7 frames of delay, right? So,
ouch.
So I stopped playing that, and Tekken Season 3 has been like already annoying. So it's just like, man, now I have to deal with it's online. So I've been playing TFH and Skullgirls, and I haven't played anything that's delay based anymore. So, and
then you find out those games are awesome. You're like, what?
They are. Man, I gotta say, like, there's a lot of people like hating on ponies and stuff, but like, man, Arizona will rush you down. I'm having so much fun with that character. Like,
oh god, yeah, she's good. I've been playing Chun Ho. I can never pronounce that name, but I've been playing the Dragon Girl, and everything's working. I'm actually messing up more because I'm expecting the delay.
The drops. Yeah.
I'm like, man, I'm not used to my inputs being so responsive online. So gotta adjust myself. But that's why I'm not going back to things like KOF 14. I mean, I'll always play KOF 14 because it's muscle memory at this point. I don't care how bad the situation is. I can play that game because it's my game. Right. But I can't go into KOF 13. I'm not going to deal with that. Lag, because you absolutely can't have lag in that game and do well. Some people can play in that environment, but they're not really playing KOF 13. I can't go back to like you said, Eunice. I can't go back to Uniclear because I don't know if I'm already all thumbs at that game, and if I think that I'm not going to be able to respond to certain things in that game because of delay, I'm not even going to bother. I'm not even going to try. And I don't want to develop the habit of playing the way I would play in delay. Lag.
Not only that, but the thing that really bothers me about Uniclair and the fact that it has such garbage netcode is that how many delays do I have to do in a fucking combo plus the garbage? Right? It's so annoying. Like, not only can I not play online, but now I have to like wait for every single hit confirm to do delays on a combo. That's so stupid. So when I think of that, I think of something that Reynolds told me. Reynolds, you know Reynolds, right? Yeah. So I remember I talked to Reynolds once and I asked him, like, in a private chat, like, dude, why are you so good? Just messing with him. He's like, it's because I think 8 steps ahead of myself. And I'm like, you mean your opponent? Like, no, myself. I'm like, huh? And then it didn't hit me until, and it wasn't exactly the same situation, but his words didn't hit me right until I played a really laggy game of KOF 14. And I was like, and I wasn't winning anything. I couldn't buy a bucket. And the guy I was playing against was somebody I beat all the time. But today it was just not the day to be playing because whatever was going on with our ISPs, they were just not having it. And so I had to start thinking about, like, okay, he knows my habits, so I'm going to have to outthink myself. And there's lag, which means I have to outthink myself at least 3 or 4 steps ahead of myself so I can confuse him. Hopefully I don't confuse myself. Yeah.
That's what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you ain't blocking nothing.
No, you ain't. It's rough, real rough. We got into a lot of stuff, but actually before we move on, because I do want to talk a lot about SNK related stuff and like FGC related stuff.
Okay.
But before we get to that, just I always like asking people their origin of their name or handle, Hellpockets.
Oh God.
I'm sure there has to be a story there.
I mean, so I've actually told this story several times. The first time I told it was to Mike Ross on Capcom Pro Talk.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So originally, when I first started competing and registering my name with Apex, which was the original ranking system, I think for SRK, I went under the moniker of Negro Ninja. And I played Virtua Fighter 4. I didn't really play CVS2 except at locals, and KOF 11. And Guilty Gear also. I never really felt it in the first place. That was just something I came up with at the last second. And so there was one year I was competing at NorCal Regionals in Sunnyvale, California. And I'm outside the venue after hours talking to Rom, Third Strike legend. And we're having a smoke. And I used to do this trick with a book of matches where I would light the match without taking it out of the book, and then light my cigarette and whatever. And so I do that, and I put the matchbook back in my pocket. And about maybe 30 seconds into our conversation, like I started feeling some serious discomfort in my stomach, and I'm thinking like I must have inhaled the cigarette too hard or something because it's just burning the hole in my gut. And I'm visibly in pain over it. And Rom's like, dude, are you all right? You're like all doubled over. I'm like, dude, I've like gotten this really bad stomach pain. I think I'm having an ulcer. And he's like, well, dude, there's smoke coming out of your pocket.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? I reach in there and the match was still lit in the book in my pocket. It was burning the hole in my pocket and burns my hand. And I pull it out like shit. And this random dude walks by at that moment and he points at me. He's like, yo, that guy's got Hot Pockets. So from that point on, my name was Hot Pockets for a couple of years. I couldn't shake it. And that's like the way you want to get a handle. It's like based on like a real life, situation. Mm-hmm. So the way it became Hellpockets was we were at Southtown Arcade playing KOF 13 one day, and I had a match against Hans for tournament. I think it was close to getting in the top 8. I don't know. And Hans was like the original FGC streamer along with Spooky. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't terrible or nothing like that, but I beat his ass all the time, And so today I was like, oh, I'm gonna have a little fun because I want to just, I want to encourage him to keep playing because I didn't have like, the mentality that if I beat the crap out of this guy, he'll keep coming back for more. I was thinking like, if I keep beating the crap out of him, he ain't gonna want to play no more.
Right.
So I was like, let me take it easy on him. But then just when he thinks he's gonna win, just snatch the victory right from underneath him. And he beat my ass because I fucking held on to that idea too long. I was like, oh shit, like I gotta turn this around. I couldn't. He smelled blood in the water. He took it. And he took that shit for free. No, like I won't say that I let him win, but he definitely kicked my ass. But in my head, I'm thinking I let him win, and I'm pissed. I'm absolutely hot over this. And I go outside, and somebody's like, wants to have a post-match interview with me, and I'm like not even in the right mood for it. And I just go off on some rant about how I shouldn't be nice to people when I'm playing fighting games anymore. And I say that's something that Hot Pockets would do. Hellpockets is an asshole. Hellpockets sounds like a guy that'll kick your ass. He doesn't care for friends, I'm now Dark Hellpockets or Dark Hot Pockets.
Oh man.
And on top of that, I can't get sued.
Yeah, that's true. They can't come after you.
Nah, I was thinking about that too a couple of years ago. I was like, man, what if I had stuck with Hot Pockets? And I was like, that probably wouldn't have worked out very well once I did a couple Evos. So
yeah, they would start asking questions.
I've had a bunch of names though. Like there was Negro Ninja, Hot Pockets, Hellpockets, Hacks Murderer. That's my PSN handle. My favorite that I never used because I thought it would just cause way too many problems was Darth Sharpton. So, and Ultra Dave is like, dude, I wish you would have stuck with Darth Sharpton. And I'm like, I might. In 2021, I might just come back with Darth Sharpton. And the way I got that name was one night I was hanging out with my buddies in San Francisco. And after we left the bar, I went to a Jack in the Box that was open all night. And there was some girl in there that saw me walk in. And she was like, trying to call me the Rasta man because I have dreads and I'm black, and she was like, "Where's the fucking weed at, bro?" And I'm like, "Oh God!" And that shit, if you're a black dude with dreads in America, that shit probably happens to you like 5 times a week. And I was just like, I don't know what it was. I was having a great night that night, but for some reason, I just wasn't having that casual racism, Mm-hmm. And so I kind of went off on her and let her know, like, yo, like not every black dude with dreads is a fucking Rasta, Mm-hmm. I actually like heavy metal, damn it. And my buddy is just watching me yell at this chick. And after I'm done, he's like, dude, you like let that chick have it like some freaking, some like old school black pastors or some shit. You're like Darth Sharpton. And I was like, oh shit. Names are weird like that.
Yeah, they are. They definitely are. The worst part is that I used to play Persona 4 Arena online a lot back in the day. Mm-hmm. And there's this guy, he played, I don't know if you know anything about Persona 4 Arena, but there's a character called Adachi, right? And he can spam a move that's just like a giant beam. And the guy's name was my GF's Tasty Undies. And and that dude used to kick my ass doing the cheapest shit all the time. I was like, I can't believe I'm losing to a guy whose name is my girlfriend's Tasty Undies.
That is the caveat of online play. Yeah. If the netcode gets better, you're probably still going to lose a match to somebody named my girlfriend's Tasty Undies.
Yeah. Online is it's a savage world. It really is. So I guess transitioning over to commentating. It's a big thing, obviously, for you, right? Just to start, how did you get into commentating?
So commentary came to me when it was Hans basically. We were at Southtown Arcade, and actually it was before that. Actually, now that I think about that, it was actually a couple of years before that, because Hans used to come to the arcade at SF State's Rack and Q. SF State is like the local university. They had an arcade, and it fostered the FGC for a number of years.
Oh, cool.
And they're still around, but everything's shut down because of the quarantine. So it ain't happening. But he used to come around there. He went to the school too. And, back then, like, everybody was a commentator, because everybody was behind somebody's back who was playing, just screaming like, yo, don't fall for that shit. This guy's free. Everybody was talking shit at maximum volume. And Hans, out of all the people, Hans was like, dude, I think you're the best at it around here. I think you have the voice. I think you have the energy, and you got the jokes. So I think you should probably help me out with this project that I'm working on with Mr. Jared. Mr. Jared was another NorCal FGC. I'll say he played, but he was more of a supporter at the time. They both had the idea of, when did Street Fighter 4 come out? 2008, 2009?
Yeah, late 2008, I think.
Late 2008. So yeah, around then they both had the idea, or when the console version came out in 2009. That's right. When it came out in 2009, they both had the idea of broadcasting that game on the internet. And they invited, and Jared invites me over his place to be a part of it. And he says, I got a microphone, and I want you to be on the microphone and, do all that shit you normally do for the arcades, except do it on the microphone, basically. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Just bring the beers. And so we get drunk, and we're doing that, and it's a pretty cool thing for a couple weeks. And then, and by the way, sidebar, this wasn't the kind of stream that it is now. This was no direct feed. It was a video camera sitting in front of the screen.
Okay, yeah.
And being fed into a laptop, and the mic was also being fed into a laptop, and so we did it that way. It worked for what it was. And then Hans upgraded that shit by giving us a direct feed, getting us a channel on, I forget the freaking platform. One of those super old ass archaic platforms that might still exist in some form or way, but does not have a name anymore. But we used that, and again, they asked me to do mic work again, and it was just for fun. And it just kept snowballing that way, to the point where when Southtown Arcade opened up and Hans was contracted to stream all the tournaments there, he wanted me on commentary exclusively for KOF 13. And he said, well, if I want to commentate anything else, I was welcome to. So for a couple of years, well, actually for a year, we're doing that. And we're producing content that way. He gets a contract to stream NorCal Regionals 10 at San Francisco State University. And he has me doing top 8 for KOF 13. And at this point, mind you, I have still just been showing up to have fun, get on the mic, just do what we always do. A night after the night after the event ends, we're at the bar celebrating, our victory and how well the show went. And he hands me like $150. And I'm like, what's this for? And he says, it's for your mic work. You deserve it. And I say, I'm not taking this. I've been doing this for fun the entire time, So why would I get paid to talk about video games on a microphone? And he was like, dude, just take it. I got to give it to you. And so I'm like, so I fought him on it for a good, 30 minutes, and I couldn't. He just made me take it. Tax reasons, basically.
Okay.
And so I was like, all right, cool. I took it. And then the next thing I know, he's like, by the way, I'm working Evo this year. And this is 2012. And he's like, I want you to commentate KOF 13 at Evo this year for me. And so I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I think I hadn't been to Evo since 2009, which is another story entirely. If you want to do another episode, I'll tell you about that.
Okay.
But I do Evo 2012, and I show up to this thing. I show up to my first day of work, and I'm nervous as hell because like everybody there that I was meeting were people that I had only read about. I had never interacted with them, and I known they were huge figures, and I know they were huge personalities. And I was just like, man, what do I say to these guys? Like they're all businessmen, like Mr. Wizard, the Cannons, Chris Lee, all these guys I knew about. I'm like, man. And they come up to me and they're like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? We love your shit. I'm like, what? You watch my Seth Killian comes up to me. He's like, you do some pretty good work. I love your stuff for KOF 13. I'm like, all right. I don't play none of your games.
Yeah.
Seth's cool though. I love that dude. I looked at the schedule for KOF 13 in 2012, and I was on there for like 89% of the schedule.
Oh,
like
man.
KOF 13 was a 3-day tournament that year, and I had the lion's share of all the slots. I didn't get barely any breaks. So there's a if you watch the replays of some of those streams on day 2, you might think that I sound kind of exhausted. It's because I've been commentating for 16 hours.
Damn.
Yeah. And I hung in there. I think I tapped out at the 16th hour to take a break, and then came back to finish off semifinals. And then top 8 came, and top 8 for KOF 13 in 2012 was what put me on the map. Me and Meta Abe. The entire top 8 was phenomenal, but obviously everybody remembers Mad KOF versus Bala.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one that was like, it was an incredibly sick match. My mic work was good. Meta Abe's mic work was great. But it was the combination of that and the crowd. The crowd for that game, for that grand finals, was absolutely ridiculous. And I don't think even now I haven't heard anything like that for Evo ever since. And people they wanted to reproduce it, I think. I think they were just like, all those working parts together again, they can make great shows. And they were right, because we did it again in 2013. And so that's how I got into commentary, was just not only picking the right games to commentate, but also just being in the right place at the right time.
Right. That has to be really difficult, right? When you're doing so many hours straight of commentary. How do you keep sharp at the 14th hour or 15th hour?
Well, I mean, I'm like 26 at the time. So like, I was like just running on the young man energy at that point.
Right.
I think it was mainly just, so what I tell most commentators is stick to what you're good at. If you venture outside of what you're good at least make sure that you aren't going to go so far off the deep end that you forget why you went in that direction,
Right.
And so I was doing that to the max the entire time. I was definitely dropping some cliche buzzwords that I'm normally known for. There were some matches where I'll admit it, I wasn't even talking about the match. I was just talking shit, because it was keeping me awake.
Yeah.
And also depends on your partner, If your partner's like feeding off of your energy really well and giving it back, it's a lot easier to stay awake and stay energetic. And there was a couple of guys on that who were, they're good, they're cool, but I was also like, man, I'm not really feeling it in the same way that I'm feeling it with like Meta Abe and a couple of other people I work with. So I had to keep myself going that way. And the way I kept myself going was just remembering why I enjoy the game, remembering why Hans asked me to commentate it, and just, at that point I was just soldiering through it, soldiering through the pain. I wouldn't recommend anybody do that. They won't pay you more for doing it, basically.
Yeah. Maybe start a little smaller than
that. If they give you if they give you 3 slots, that's good.
Yeah.
That's high grade. If they give you 8 slots, that's abuse.
You touched on it just now, but so when you listen to different fighting game commentators, right, they all seem to prioritize different things, right? Like, what do you put more emphasis on when commentating? Because some will talk about like the big moments, or calling out play-by-play, or just talking about the player or their play style. What do you really put emphasis on when you're commentating a match?
I gotta say, it really depends. It depends on who I'm working with, depends on the match, depends on the game, depends on my mood, really. If I had it my way, though, I would generally only focus on play-by-play and big moments, because I do have knowledge that I can impart, but I do it in a way that I at least don't think I'm comfortable doing constantly, That's something I had to work on for a very long time, and I think I'm okay with it now. But back in the day, I would have much preferred to keep it just about keeping everything hype, interesting, while my co-commentator did all the science. And like Chris Segg, the super producer Chris Segg, he has been very supportive of that role of mine. One of the things he's told to me is like, I'm one of the best big moment guys in the business. If there's a big moment happening on stream, I'm probably going to nail it. And he's right. I am going to nail it. But beyond that, like, I don't really mind doing some of the explanation stuff. If you watched a lot of Evo Japan Samurai Showdown tournament, one of the things that I focused on was, it's Samurai Showdown, so it's not super complicated. But one of the things I focused on in that tournament was talking about the players, especially in top 8, because these were players that by and large, not a lot of people knew about. Because Samurai Showdown community, what the hell is that, right?
Yeah.
So this was our chance to sell these guys to the world. And thank God for Smash GG and keeping a history. And the Japanese are really diligent about that too. Like the Japanese scene for Samurai Showdown, if these guys have entered the Samurai Showdown tournament, there is a history there. And it's curated. And these guys, they curate their profiles. They got YouTube links. They got profile links. They got Twitter. And they're not shy about that. And so they gave me plenty of stuff to talk about when there wasn't much happening on screen. And I was able to build a story with a lot of these players, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I love doing that. That's probably my favorite thing to do when commentating is building a story about the players, whether or not they have a history together. If they have a history together, that's just an added bonus. I can talk about that all day. But if they have, like, say, they got a YouTube channel and they're diligently trying to create content for it, or they've been at this tournament and they did this well, and then they did another tournament and they almost won it, but they lost to this guy who they're currently playing on stream right now. All that stuff, I live for that. That's the best.
Yeah, I find that, you know, as spectators, we kind of take it for granted sometimes. Like when we see people like on the big stage, right? Like yourself commentating EVO or any major, right? Combo Breaker CEO, all those guys, like we take it for granted, the commentary crew sometimes, because I don't know if you ever see like just regular locals at like universities or whatever, and they have like the little stream setup. The balance between commentators is so important because, you know, you can have a hype man and he's there to basically get things going. And then you have the more analytical, quieter guy or girl, and that's how it balances. But when you have two of the same kind, it's either super quiet or just super loud. You can't, you know, it's either way, it's not going to be very informative for somebody who's trying to understand the game more or get more entertainment out of the game. So when you have a good combination, like whether it's like Ringe and Obama, where you have one guy do one thing and the other guy do another thing, we take it for granted a lot of times, and I really appreciate that from commentators, where they can just balance out what's happening on screen with big moments and good analytical play-by-play. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest, not necessarily oversights or misconceptions, actually, I guess it is a misconception. One of the biggest misconceptions I've seen in commentary is that if you get two really hype commentators together, they will always produce an amazing event. Mm-hmm. Now, I say always because it's entirely possible that they do an amazing set. A good example of that is me and Yipes calling Dragon Ball Fighters Leffen versus Goichi. That couldn't have worked without me and Yipes at the time. I don't know if anybody else could have did it better, but the way that worked for what it was and why everybody liked it, I think it was because it was me and him on there and we were feeding off each other's energy so well. In any other situation, though, I feel like both of us, unless we were just having fun with it, we were just chilling and, you know, shooting the breeze, I feel like Yipes would have benefited from a guy who was much more analytical. I feel like I would have been the hype man in another situation, you know? Mm-hmm. But when we put us two together, we basically had to be like, okay, one of us has to do something. Right. You know, one of us has to have a role here. The weird thing about that, though, is working with Yipes is like he can do both. I can do both. Mm-hmm. And so we were definitely trading off in that way, but not every commentator is able to do that.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about balance in between hype man and analytical guy, one of the most important things to remember is that not everybody has the skill set that you do, you know? Mm-hmm. And so you kind of, it's weird, but the only way you can kind of figure that out with your partner is by working with them on stream.
Right. So do you find yourself adapting like mid commentary, depending if you're working with somebody new, to maybe kind of change your style, or do you normally just stick to
all the time, man? All the time. I'm just like, okay, who am I working with? What's he like? So if I can research him, if I can get some information on him, either on YouTube videos or whatnot, then, you know, that'll help out a lot. But if I have to do that day of, I'm definitely feeling that commentator out and then just filling in the spaces that I feel are lacking between us. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they reciprocate, you know?
Yeah.
And when you're working in the FGC and you're doing commentary, you're going to work with people all the time that you haven't worked with before, because especially if you're new. Mm-hmm. If you're new and you're doing Evo and they're going to put you up with somebody you've never worked with before. And sometimes it doesn't go so great. Sometimes, you know, you had a game plan going in. And I will tell most new commentators, or even veteran commentators, because some of them need to hear it also, is if you go into commentary with a game plan, You got to go in with an adjustment plan. You got to go in with you got to go in with an open mind. You can't go in there and just think like, well, I'm gonna do what I do and it's gonna be awesome. And if the other guy doesn't play along with it, then that's their loss. Nah, you're both gonna look like shit.
Yeah, and the spectators can really tell too. I mean, they can feed off that energy, right? So they can
totally. Mm-hmm. I think it happened a couple of years ago. With like at Evo at Street Fighter V. I forget the commentators who were working it, but somebody was like afterwards, like I guess someone was complaining about how they had no chemistry and how the set was just not. It was subpar. I'll put it that way. And one of the commentators was like, "Oh yeah, it was that guy. It was the other dude. I never worked with him before, and I honestly just wasn't feeling his energy or something to that degree." He basically threw the dude under the bus. You never do that.
Yeah.
Because not only at that point you're basically saying like you couldn't be bothered to do better. You got to reach out to your commentator partner, even if you don't think they are, more entertaining than a loaf of bread. You got to reach out to them. You got to meet them halfway. Mm-hmm. Some of the best commentary sets I've done are with people that initially weren't on my level of energy and hadn't worked with me before. Don't play the games that I play, and we have no prior history together. And I just had to be like, you know what? This is my dude for the next 48 hours. I'm going to talk to him like I talk to my homies. Mm-hmm. Because if he's not comfortable with me, I'm not going to be comfortable with him. I mean, after it's done, you guys go to your separate corners, Mm-hmm. That's another thing I think that is a misconception of commentary is that everybody's buddies after they commentate each other. I mean, they don't hate each other, nothing like that. But there isn't a ton of communication in between events if you work with somebody. And again, it's not because there's any animosity. It's just they don't run in the same circles. Yeah. But one of the things that I often heard after I finished a commentary set with somebody was like, wow, you guys need to do more work together. And I'm like, I mean, I'd love to, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And then the relationship that might have developed during commentary doesn't really go anywhere. And there's nothing wrong with that. You see each other maybe once or twice a year anyway. So so basically new commentators, if you ever find yourself in that situation where you did a good set with somebody and you don't know what to say to them afterwards or they ain't saying nothing to you afterwards, don't feel terrible. Don't feel bad. Mm-hmm. It's just business. It's just how it is. They don't dislike you. They just, unless you guys are really hitting it off that way, it's just business.
Right. I don't know if you can comment on this or not, but just from a production sense, does production pick up on things like that? And would they, like, if you have a really good set with somebody you've never worked with before, will they try to pair you up again in the future? Or
no, totally. If the production sees that you guys, if they think they hit pay dirt with a combination, they will definitely keep that in mind because production is watching everything. Production for at least Evo, 10-0, the best production company in the FGC, easily.
Yeah.
If they watch everything, they are fans of everything. They are plugged into everything, so they know who is who and who's doing what. If they think that you and another person that you don't normally work with are a great combination, damn right, they'll definitely put you guys together again. With the exception being me and Yipes, because I don't know what's going on there, but we haven't worked with each other really since Dragon Ball.
Man, they're probably, what I would assume is they're trying to balance out, like if you're going to have a really good experienced commentator, they're probably going to try to balance it out with multiple teams instead of assume.
Well, look at it this way, if you're running Evo and you decide to have an exhibition match, are you gonna pick a guy who has done well but doesn't really have a lot of buzz around them, or are you gonna pick Chris G versus Justin Wong?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think for the big ones, right? Especially you're talking about like exhibition, like if you're gonna have the All-Star play in the exhibition, you should have the All-Star commentate the exhibition as well. I think. Yeah,
that's just it. And I hate to think like, oh man, I'm like gatekeeping anybody here because I don't want to. But at the same time, when you're starting out, you're not going to get top 8. Like I've had issues with guys who did their first Evo and were mad they didn't get top 8. And I was like, what the hell? And they're like, why are you doing top 8? You don't even play this game. And I'm like, yeah, but I've been working this damn show for 3 or 4 years, man.
Yeah.
And the production company trusts me. So I'm like, I don't really know what, it's not my fault.
Right. Yeah. No, you got to pay your dues. I mean, this is the FGC. You don't just get things handed to you, right?
Yeah. You got to pay your dues like with everything. And like, again, they don't hand it to you and they're paying you. So yeah, they're going to make you work for it.
Yeah. So actually speaking of commentating KOF, right, we're coming up, at least I'm hoping, right? We haven't heard anything, but we're coming up on KOF 15. Soon TM.
Yes.
We don't know when, but hopefully it's coming. So I'd like to pick your brain a little bit on KOF related topics, because I'm sort of an outsider, but I do have like a lot of respect for that franchise. And because I mean, for the most part, like I'll play like Tekken and like anime games, and that's really where I like. Now I only play, rollback netcode stuff, but like back then, I mean, before Rollback, I used to play just mainly Tekken. And
okay.
But I do know a lot about KOF just from being a spectator, because I love watching those games. So just to start, do you have like a personal favorite King of Fighters game?
A personal favorite King of Fighters game? KOF 11. King of Fighters 11. And sadly, it is the least available game in the series. I think every other game has had at least 2 or 3 re-releases. KOF 11 is the only game that you can't get on current gen, or even on the last gen, unless you have like a Japanese PSN account on your PS3.
Oh, man.
It's that deep. KOF 11 was the breakout game that shifted the idea of what KOF is. KOF 2003 kind of got the ball rolling, because not only did they, well, actually, no longer did they require you to lose a character to switch out a character. You were able to tag in a character at will.
Mm-hmm.
And KOF 11 in 2006, I believe, took it a step further, where you could tag in a character mid-combo and continue the combo with the other character. Now, you notice a lot of versus games do that now. Like, everybody does that shit now.
Yeah.
But KOF 11 was definitely like a different beast altogether. I still don't know if there's a game like it out now, which is why it's so sad that it's basically untouchable unless you're willing to go on that null DC route. Shout outs to the null DC creators, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But it was by far my favorite KOF game of all time. KOF 13 was great also. That's probably my second favorite KOF game. But KOF 11 was like, because not only was it the game I started playing KOF with, but it really fashioned me into a fighting game player, I would say. Because I had played Guilty Gear, I had played Third Strike, I had played CVS2, and I didn't really want to get better at those games to the point where I was going to try to compete for top 8. But KOF 11 made me want to compete to be the best in my region, at least. I would travel to play that game against people.
Yeah, that's not a pick you really hear a lot when you talk to people in the community and you ask them their favorite KOF games. 11 is not normally something that comes up.
Yeah, there's a bunch of freaking assholes on 98. Like, yeah, okay, man.
Yeah.
No, 98's cool. I like 98 also. I've actually gone back because of quarantine to play a lot of old KOF games. I'm like, these games are really good.
Mm-hmm.
They still ain't King of Fighters 11, but it's a good game.
Yeah. The KOF community is so interesting to me. And let me know if you agree with this assessment as an outsider, because this is how I see it. So the people that play KOF, I mean, first off, they actually play, right? Because,
yes.
I mean, I'm not going to specify any other singular communities, but, you go on FGC Twitter and there's a lot of people out there and, they're too busy tweeting than actually playing. So,
I mean, I'm not going to say you're wrong, but...
So that's the one with KOF, right? The other part is that, man, not only do you rarely hear too much like KOF drama, but those guys just mind their business. I remember when King of Fighters 14 came out, and then shortly after, I think it was E3, everyone in the FGC was just shitting on its graphic, but then you have Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite come out, and then everybody was like, wow, the gameplay is so good. It's like, what happened to KOF 14? Y'all shat on that thing.
To be fair, Marvel Infinite got its shit in the end. They got its comeuppance in the end.
It did. But I'm saying in 2017, when those two games were like being talked about like shortly after release, I know KOF 14 came out in 2016, but they were around the same time frame. I just remember like, everybody's talking shit about, oh, that game looks like a PS2 game, but Marvel comes out, it's like, wow, gameplay's so good. It's like, okay.
Oh yeah, they focus on the gameplay for Marvel. I mean, that's just, I've been dealing with that forever, man.
Yeah.
I remember when KOF 12 came out, and KOF 12 was like a blown up version of KOF 13, where the sprites were beautiful, but they were super zoomed in because they were employing the zoom in, zoom out feature of the camera. And I remember there was an interview with Gutex, and I don't hold nothing against him for saying it, but he said something like they were asking about various fighting games back then that came out, and someone said KOF 12, and he was like, "Who gives a fuck about KOF?" And the KOF community was like, "What the what?"
Yeah.
So, by the way, I'll correct you. There is KOF drama. There is SNK community drama, but it largely stays within the SNK community. At least it did until this year. It's normally just dumb shit, though. You know?
Yeah.
It's normally just people being idiots and being. It's unchecked immaturity, is what it is. You know? And I think that some of the newer players, myself, and I'm not a new player, but I'm just saying, like myself, Gibby, the Goons, some other people, and a lot of the new players bring an energy to that community that says it doesn't tolerate that anymore. You know, because the SNK community, the KOF community, is probably one of the last OG type fighting game communities.
I agree. Yeah,
no one's watching us, so we can say whatever the hell we want. That's kind of the belief. And we're in there saying, like, no, I'm watching you, motherfucker. Like,
yeah.
If you say something stupid, I'm definitely going to say something.
Yeah. Well,
and I got a platform.
Yeah, no kidding. I agree. I don't think there's any community in the FGC that's exempt of, you know, having shitheads in it. But KOF, just from an outsider, like, I could tell, like, it just seems, it's so weird because you know how, like, there technically is a divide within that community. Like, you got 98, 2002, 13, 14. And for some reason, it looks like it. I mean, it doesn't look like it stems from beef. It just stems from preference, right? Like, I like 98. I like 2002.
No. This is most certainly beef.
Really?
Like that's another episode, though, man.
Okay.
There's most certainly beef in the KOF and SNK community. Right now, the way that the community handles it, though, like I said, it's mostly internal.
Okay.
You know. It's a combination of it just always being that way, and so people are kind of used to it, which is shitty. And the fact that the platform isn't there for a lot of people. And I personally have been trying to put forth the image that if you come to this games community, we're going to accept you. We're going to welcome you with open arms, and we're going to have a good time. But you got to drink Tecate or Modelo. But that's what I prefer to use my platform for. I would not use my platform for calling out all the shitheads in the community that say dumb things that are racist, sexist, you know, for screwing over other community members, for undercutting people, for, you know, bad-mouthing people behind their backs to developers and industry heads. I would not use my platform for that because it's not worth it. Because no one's paying attention to them anyway. If they're paying attention to me, I'm gonna say, come over here. We're having a good time. Don't worry about that shit. Yeah. You know, they'll get theirs eventually. You come over here and play our game. We're gonna have a good time. And I think that's what more communities need to do. I mean, obviously, if there's shitty people in your community and the community is as big as something like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or Tekken, you need to root that shit out. You know, you need to get rid of that. But it's KOF. I mean, if the only people you're paying attention to in KOF are the big names and all the big names are cool people, then what's the problem? You know?
Right.
Like, we'll deal with those other guys. You come over and have a good time. Enjoy yourself.
Now, do you think that's actually a good thing? The fact that, you know, if there is some beef or whatever toxicity, it stays inside? Because you look at some other communities, I'm a part of it, where it's like I'm in Tekken, you know, you go on Twitter, Reddit, whatever, like, it's just a lot of whining. Or, like, I mean, Street Fighter has its laundry aired out every day, it seems like. And it's just like, I don't even play that game. I'm tired of it.
Too damn visible.
Yeah.
It's too damn visible. They can't help it. You know, somebody fucks up in Street Fighter or Tekken now, and it's everywhere. Someone fucks up in KOF, you might hear about it a year later. But is it a good thing? It's a good thing in the sense that these bad actors do not get to play bigger roles in the community because of it. I think that one of the best things that KOF has going for it is the fact that largely when those bad actors end up getting exposed, like, everybody stops fucking with them. You know, I mean, for the most part. I mean, like, it's not like they go away completely, but they lose some power because of that. There's real life consequences for people misbehaving, in my experience. It hasn't always been that way. There was definitely a time where there were guys who misbehaved and they skated by under the radar because either they knew somebody or they were just too small time to really matter, and so no one really felt like it was worth it to call him out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been, for the most part, recently, like, yeah, people are not tolerating it now. A good example of that, they won't even tolerate the official Twitter making sexist jokes. And I want to clarify something real quick when I say that, because we're obviously talking about Iroha and Samurai Showdown.
Mm-hmm.
And me personally, I don't give a shit. I've been playing SNK games since I was a kid. I know that they love tits and ass, you know? I know, but they're subversive about it,
Mm-hmm.
They don't make it a point to accentuate that verbally. They're just like, hey, here's a character, you might like him. The point I want to make is that all those guys who are talking about how people were being too sensitive and how the SJWs are trying to ruin the SNK community, those guys are not SNK fans.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Those guys are just randoms that showed up for the argument.
Mm-hmm. I really didn't have. I mean, listen, I could take it or leave it. I didn't have a big problem with that tweet. And I was just like, well, whatever. Like,
I didn't either. I was like, oh boy, here we go,
It's just, yeah, I didn't really understand the outrage on that one. I mean, there's so much other stuff that if you really want to be legitimately outraged about something, it's not that. Like, go pick something actually.
Well, so the funny thing about that is that the outrage around that wasn't really outrage. It was more like someone didn't really think that the official account should be tweeting that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they came from a place of I'm offended as much of a place from I think they can do better than that,
mm-hmm.
And they're right, because SNK has never done that before.
Yeah,
SNK has always done better than that. And this was the first time where they were just like, hey, we got a character with some booty and tits. Check it out. We're all horny on main. Like I said, I had no issue with it, but certain people did, and the person that they ended up attaching to was someone who was coming from a place of not criticizing the actual character. Right. They were not criticizing the character at all. They were just saying, I think the official Twitter shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And they're right. Because if I'm a businessman, if I own a company and my social media guy does something some shit like that, I'm like, hey, who approved this,
And that's exactly right. He's a social media guy. For all you know, he probably doesn't play like Sam Show or KOF or whatever.
And even if he does, it's like, so what?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just saying, like, I don't want my product represented that way.
Yeah.
And it turned out that the company agreed. They were like, yeah, we don't want the product represented that way.
It's probably like Wendy's type of thing, right? Like everybody loves Wendy's Twitter because it's like edgy or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe he was trying to do something like that, but
I don't know. I don't venture to guess what they were doing. I mean, I'm sure they came from a place that was good. I don't think they meant to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
It's just that when you get into that business, and this is something, by the way, this is something I learned by becoming a commentator and getting deeper into gaming, which brought me deeper into social media management, which brought me deeper into show business, is that you never do something to embarrass the company.
Mm-hmm.
If you never do something that the company wouldn't approve of, you never do something that if it seems like a bad idea, you probably, you wouldn't do it. You always err on the side of judgment. It's weird too, because like I had to learn that. I had to learn that there were things I just couldn't say or do anymore. Like back when I was, 20 something playing fighting games, commentating, I was a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
I said everything under the sun. I was homophobic, I was racist, I was transphobic, and I don't mind admitting it now, because the reason why I stopped doing all that was because people showed me how much it hurt them,
Yeah.
And not only that, the company was like, yeah, we ain't going for that shit. Like people say like, yeah, this is not going to fly anymore. But the big important part was like, I didn't realize it was hurting people to that degree. And I was like, you know what? I got to stop it. I got to stop being a shithead just for the sake of being a shithead.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was doing. That's what all those guys are doing, is just being shitty for the sake of being shitty.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, it's not, man. There's a lot of stories like mine. There's a lot of guys who definitely, said things that now they'd be ashamed of, and they said them back then because they felt like they could get away with it, and they didn't know how much it could hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, just recently we had an example with F-Champ, right? And he just got banned from all those tournaments. And I was making the case like, listen, that tweet is, first of all, it's dumb and it's just not funny. But that tweet, I think he got banned as a form of back pay. Like, I think he just got banned because, listen, he doesn't have a great reputation. He said a lot of dumb things in the past. He hasn't been too easy to work with. And that tweet was just like, well, I guess we can use this. This is back pay for being a shithead.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that's like, I don't know, man. That was weird. Like all the way through 100%. That was a bizarre chapter.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
But the one thing I want people to understand is that it's not enough to just say you're sorry, you know, because I live it every day. The things I've said, I don't expect anybody to forgive me for, but I will try every day to do better, you know, whether they forgive me or not, because I don't want to be that person.
That's a big part that I'm a little bit scared of, you know, with the F-Champ thing. I don't really mind because, you know, he hasn't really seemed to really want to change, which is fine. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. But for people like yourself or people, I mean, everybody makes mistakes, right? We're human. Nobody's impervious to that. So
yeah, and you're a product of your environment. And if everybody in your environment is a shithead, you might adapt some of those qualities.
Yeah. So I don't mind people making mistakes and then owning up to them and then doing better. But the thing that kind of scares me, especially for newcomers coming into the FGC who aren't, you know, well versed in that type of thing, is I would hate to see somebody new get canceled and then they can never come back, or they get like blacklisted from like Discords or online communities just because they fumbled a bit. That's what really scares me. Is it's like, I understand people want everybody to be cool, but sometimes things aren't always cool. So you should be able to give people second chances without being just like, all right, you're out of here. You're done.
Well, here's the thing. When you get canceled, it's not like they're not giving you a second chance. You always have another chance to do better. But like I said, you can't expect forgiveness, man. Like, you have to be wanting to do better because you want to do better, not so that you can just go to tournaments again, you know?
Right.
Because then it's not sincere, because then you're just doing it for the cameras. You got to want to do better. You got to not want to say the F word anymore because it hurts somebody you love. You got to not want to, you know, talk about transgender people because one of your best friends came out to you as transgender and you didn't realize you were killing their soul the entire time, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you got to want to do that. And it's not about everybody else. It's about you. And if you can build up a reputation after all that makes people accept you again, then great. That's awesome for you. But it shouldn't be about that ever, because life isn't about, you know, pissing people off. It's not about offending people. You don't get anything out of this life if you don't love anybody. You don't get anything out of life without love, you know? And if you're not showing love to people, then what are you doing here? And that's what I realized, you know? I realized that I was a stupid little edgelord that had, for some reason, convinced himself that the way to live life was to be as raucous and raunchy and offensive as ever. And people would like me for it. And that's, I mean, full disclosure, that's what I was looking for, because I wanted people to like me. And it wasn't worth it. Because I didn't believe none of the shit I was saying. I was just like, well, that's just the mood of the room right now, you know? And in the end, like, a lot of those cats didn't stick around. And the ones that did, they can't do shit for me anyway. And I can't really talk to them anyway, because, like, they haven't grown. So I'm just like, I don't really have nothing to attach myself to with them anymore. But when I decided to change, when I decided to do better, I felt better. I felt better about myself. I felt like I no longer have to perform to other people's standards. I can just do what I've always done, you know? I could just be the nice guy I was born to be, because I am a nice guy. I'm not a guy that wants to hurt anybody. I've never been that guy. And when I started saying things that I thought would hurt people, I felt horrible. I never liked it, but I felt like it was the only way I was going to fit in certain circles. I'm not just talking about FGC, by the way. Like, FGC, by that point, I had already weeded a bunch of that stuff out. But at the time when I was really deep into that stuff, I was like, man, this doesn't feel right. And I feel like I'm losing myself because I'm trying to be someone else's idea of me. And it's not a cool person. And I want to be a cool person, but I don't know what that is. But it's not this. And so I would say to people like F-Champ, if you want to change, you should do it. It's not hard. And you don't gain anything from not changing at this point. I say the things like Cerebral Blast. If you want to change, do it because you want to, because you won't gain anything from staying the same way as you are right now. Even if you got banned from evil for a year or two, you know, you got to change because you want to. even low tier God, if there ever comes a day where he feels like he can't do it anymore, he should stop.
When it comes to that guy, I don't know what's real and what's fake. I really like.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if it's real or fake, man. I mean, everybody's performing. Hey, we're all performing a role when we talk that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we're not born on this planet to spread hate. We're not born on this planet to just shit on everybody that isn't, up to our standard. That's something that's learned. And we only learned it because it was done to us.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot closer to home when
it's
personal.
No one is born thinking they hate gay people or blacks or transgenders. That's something that's learned. And it's uncomfortable as hell when you learn it too, I guarantee. That's something you had to get used to. And eventually you're just like, well, I better do this or these other dudes are going to beat my ass, or I'm going to get lambasted by the entire community that I've thought I was accepted by.
Yeah.
Or you could just be an angry little piece of shit. But even then there's a way to change, but you got to do it because you want to. You got to do it not because you want people to love you, but because you want people to understand that you have love to give and you want to give that love to people. If they refuse to change, then yeah, you got to let a man go sometimes, But I've always believed that people can be taught. Mm-hmm. If they choose to learn, they can be taught. If they see the error of their ways, but they don't know how to reverse course, then if you're willing to, because it's nobody's obligation to do it, you should give them the chance to learn. And I'm not saying forgive them. I'm not saying invite them into your circles. But if they ask you questions on how to do better, you should answer them, Because going to Google ain't going to work for that shit. No. Google is a fucking Wild West right now.
It really is. And this is, I think, a really, really important time for fighting games, right? Because, we're going to have a lot of new eyes watching us just because, with Rollback Netcode, you're going to have more people trying these games, hopefully, because it's going to reach a larger audience. So not only showcasing the game, but showcasing the community as well. And a big part of that is showcasing how not to be a shithead. So people that come from other communities that things would fly there probably shouldn't fly here.
Yeah, and you can't be mad about that. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't be like, well, I did this. Like, if you come from Call of Duty and you decide to start playing Skullgirls and you talk on Skullgirls chat like you do in Call of Duty, you shouldn't be surprised when people are like, hey, knock that shit off. Mm-hmm. Even in Call of Duty, people are calling people out. I mean, you only get like 15 seconds to do it, but it's still happening, You can't be surprised or angry about that because that's exactly why you said those things, was to make these people want to call you out. I feel like every offensive utterance is a cry for help for the reasons I stated earlier. They want somebody to check them. They don't want to, because when you're just chilling at home and nobody's bothering you, you just don't fucking say hateful shit for no reason.
No. You don't. It's only when people are watching, trying to get a reaction.
Yeah, generally when it's somebody, you're usually talking to somebody when you say that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's either because you want them to notice you as a person, or because you want to hurt them. And even that is a cry for help, because you're just thinking like, I got no other options. I need someone to dig me out of this. So I'm gonna drop the F-bomb,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna release my rage on some people because no one's listening to me, and I wish somebody would listen to me because damn it, I feel like shit.
Yeah, that's some psychology type shit. That's more than FGC. That's societal type stuff.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm also a dad, and one of the things I learned from being a dad is that a lot of the times when a child acts out, it's because it's not just the attention. People say they want the attention. I'm like, no, it's not just attention. They want some help. Mm-hmm. They want to stop feeling like crap.
Yeah, it's well said. I guess we're almost winding down. I do have a few more things that I kind of want to cover, and I appreciate your time. So I recently wrote an article about King of Fighters, and normally when I write things and I put them online, FGC related stuff, the audience is obviously, because I'm based in the US, so the audience is, majority of it comes from the US, and then some of it comes from East Asia, so Japan or South Korea, stuff like that, the people that click on these things. When I wrote the King of Fighters article, I was so surprised, and I kind of knew this, but this further confirmed it. The region, the vast region in which this thing has traveled, and it's not only you have South America, you have East Asia, you have North America, you have Africa. I mean, you have, I'm pretty sure all continents there was a region there that was like somebody cared enough about King of Fighters to click on this article. So I don't know what the reason for this, but why do you think SNK properties, especially the King of Fighters, right? They're so globally emphasized in comparison to something like Tekken or Street Fighter, where it's like, it is global, but for the most part, it's really dominated by like North America and like Japan.
We have the infrastructure. Japan has the infrastructure. China has the infrastructure. Korea has the infrastructure. All those regions play SNK games, but the one region that a lot of people tend to focus on when it comes to King of Fighters is Mexico. Mexico does not have that infrastructure. They can get it. They're building. They are building at a rapid pace. I've been impressed by some of the things that they've done for the game. But when it comes to like events and communities and content and visibility, you can't really call a lot of names out from that region. Hell, you can't call a lot of names out from Japan. Most of the KOF, when you're coming from outside of KOF and you're watching a match, one of the names that you recognize the most is Bala, or Reynolds, or Juicebox, because they live in America and they play in America, and that's because America has that infrastructure, and it's because America is the driving force of the FGC right now. It's because we are the ones who will unequivocally run a damn event where everybody can show up and showcase everybody and put everyone on a pedestal if they're good, Whereas in other regions, they don't have that benefit. They don't have that luxury of just being able to pull anybody from anywhere in the world to just show up to play matches for a weekend. Mexico and South America have been able to do it. And at the same time, though, they're lacking the infrastructure. It's like that weird, you remember that GIF that was on Twitter for a while where like you had those 3 slider bars, but you can only use 2 of them. Like, you got budget, time management, and good work environment, but you can only pick 2 of them. That's currently the state of the rest of the world. In our case, it's talent, infrastructure, and interest. And right now, we're like halfway in between all of those. America has the infrastructure and it has the talent, but not enough of the interest. Japan has the infrastructure and the interest and the talent. I mean, it has a little bit of all of those, now that I think about it. But it doesn't have the worldwide interest, It doesn't have people tuning in from all over the world to watch just a KOF tournament. It's one of those things where when people watch it, they recognize how great those games are. I have yet to actually see en masse people who watch a KOF tournament via stream or on YouTube to actually say, yo, this game sucks. There's a couple of people who say that, but it's like 2 or 3 people. One of the reasons why KOF 13 was so big was because people finally got an eyeful of KOF and all its glory. And it looked beautiful because it was KOF 13.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
And they were just like, what the hell? Where's this game been at all my life? Like, how the hell did we miss this? I thought this was just that shitty game you played when you were waiting for your turn on Third Strike. Granted, it was, but when 13 came out, it was impossible to ignore it. The reason why I think that is just because SNK was not playing from behind, but they were playing a different long game than Capcom and Midway or NRS now and Namco. They were not hitting the pavement as hard as those guys. They were just producing games. And there were so many Neo Geo games, dude. Like, you could have 5 of them on a cabinet. You would go to an arcade and play 5 Neo Geo games. Go to another arcade, you play another 5 Neo Geo games. There were that many games to play from that company, even though if they didn't develop all of them. I feel like maybe people were overwhelmed. Maybe people didn't know what they were supposed to expect. Because you think about it, it's like, if I could play 5 games, but I also have the opportunity to play 1 Capcom game, like, if it's me, I'm going to try to play all 5 of those games. But I think a lot of people were just like, I'm going to go play the CVS2 or Third Strike or Super Turbo or any of those other like old games, because it's just those games, I mean, to a certain extent, that was true for Capcom also. You go to an arcade that is, and it wasn't very uncommon that they would have, Hyper Fighting and Super Turbo, and mostly everybody was playing Super Turbo. They have a couple guys on Hyper Fighting, but it wasn't as many as the people that were on the big showcase Super Turbo cab, And people always ask me, why is SNK games, why are they bigger everywhere else than America? There's a number of reasons. The most common reason is because Neo Geo cabs are cheaper than or in the long term, they're cheaper because of the reasons I mentioned earlier. You get 5 games in one cab.
Mm-hmm.
So you buy one cab, you get 5 games. Of course, they're going to be bigger in lower income countries. They actually cultivated the community around it. That's the wild thing. They cultivated an entire community around people who around arcades that saw the deal. They saw the bargain, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think that KOF will one day have its shine in the spotlight, hopefully with KOF 15. But right now, you know, it's still in that place where we have the talent and we have the infrastructure, but we don't have the interest. And I think it's almost worldwide at this point.
Yeah, it is super interesting, the fact that like on a scale extremely large, but there's so many different pockets in the world. Like, you know, talk about Brazil or like Pakistan or Luxembourg. I mean, there's so many pockets in the world that like KOF is like, that's their signature game. They're just and on a smaller scale, so you don't notice it as much as somebody or someone on like the States is like, oh, Street Fighter, Tekken, like these big games. But SNK and KOF is like so global, but we don't notice it. It seems like from a U.S. perspective, somebody who's not in the scene of King of Fighters, but it's there.
It's one of those things where if you have a ton of small voices, they will eventually you would hope they eventually would shout out the loud voice, the one loud voice. Right now, those other games are the loud voices. They have the big communities and they have the backing. Whereas, like you said, KOF and Samurai Showdown, they're just kind of all over the world in small pockets, but the amount of pockets they have are humongous. Like the sheer volume of pockets.
A lot of
like there's a lot, dude. There are places that up until 2018, I was finding out played KOF and they were good at 98. They were fucking good at that shit. There are regions that were playing KOF 98 that people didn't even know played fighting games.
Yeah.
You know? They didn't even know they had arcades. They didn't even know they played games at all. And they just like randomly silly. Like I remember years ago, I saw this random KOF 98 video from Kuwait. This is before like streams and stuff. I saw some random 98 video from Kuwait. And them motherfuckers was getting down. I was like, holy shit. No one knows. No one actually knows. But the thing is like it couldn't grow beyond that because the FGC, as far as esports goes, was always Street Fighter, Marvel, Tekken. Those were the first ones to the pool. And you had KOF in the side tournament area.
Yeah.
And people are going to travel outside for that. The first time they did was for KOF 13. And that's another issue altogether because I think if SNK had the ability to keep up with all that, then it probably could have turned out into a big thing. But that was like KOF 13 was like the last gasp of air for that chapter of SNK.
Yeah.
They were just like, we're going to go out big. And they did. And then they came back and they're actually doing better now.
Yeah, they are. I guess speaking of that, now we're technically right on the tail end of 14. What do you think that legacy for that game is as far as how people felt about it? Do you think in like 4 years, people are like, man, I love 14?
Yeah, no, I think people will remember that because one of the things I said about 14 when it dropped, I mean, other than the fact that it obviously did not look that great, but I always try to tell people like the gameplay is stellar. Like of all the games that came out in that release era, it is probably the best fighting game to come out because while people were complaining about things like comeback factors and accessibility and stuff like that, like KOF 14 managed to toe the line in between all of that and still have a very fundamentally sound fighting game. And I don't think that these new games are bad. I don't think they're not fundamentally sound, but people complain about them all the fucking time.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, I don't see it, man. It's still a fighting game. At the end of the day, it's about outthinking your opponent and having good execution. And in KOF 14, it was the same thing. But for whatever reason, they did it better than everybody else. The only thing they didn't have going for them was the visuals.
And they up-res those too.
Yeah, they ended up upgrading those too because they were like, hey, we're not done upgrading it. And it looked better. I definitely was impressed by how much they improved the visuals of the game. But it still wasn't enough, and it was too little too late.
It's so hard. I mean, once you set a precedent with such a beautiful game, and it's obviously, right, it's a different art style. with 13, and then you go to 14, everything's going to look like shit after you compare it to 13. I mean, that game...
Yeah, that was rough.
So it's just the precedent that was set. It's just like, how do you top that? It's just like, man.
I like, it was one of those things because, like, we were all speculating about how KOF 14 would look when it came out because we were all expecting... Because we knew it was going to be 2.5D. People were dropping leaks about that for, like, months. Mm-hmm. And so we were all thinking, like, hey, maybe it'll look like 13, but in 3D, because... One of the things that a lot of us remember from 13 was that originally it was supposed to be, or 12 was supposed to be 2.5D. It was supposed to be 3D sprites on the 2D background. Mm-hmm. And there are assets from KOF 12 and 13 that showcase the models for those games because they were originally 3D models. They exist. And they look just like the 13 sprites. Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly upset that they didn't keep those assets and just decided to work with them for 14. Like, I'm just like, where did they go? Did you delete them? Did you trash them? Or because what happened was, so they made the models and then they rotoscoped them into 2D sprites. But you can go on Google right now and look up KOF 12 and 13 rotoscope models, and you'll find these beautiful 3D models that lack a little bit of the detail of 13, but could have easily been edited in, you know?
Right.
And so I at least was expecting that. But SNK had another plan entirely, and when SNK put out a hiring announcement saying like, "Hey, we want young 3D modelers to come to SNK and work on a new game," and the image of it was a picture of Kill, and we were like, "Oh shit, they're about to start making KOF 14," but at the same time, I was like, "Dude, that picture of Kill, his face." Doesn't look anything like what we saw from 13. Mm-hmm. And so already we knew some shit was going down. And then the trailer came out at Tokyo Game Show in 2015, I think. And we were like, oh boy, here we go. And it got better, but not by a lot. But it was hard to follow that act, dude. And I understand why they couldn't. I would understand if they said, yeah, 13 was a super expensive game to make. And we probably wouldn't do that again unless, you know, our backers dropped the bread.
Yeah, so. I wonder I don't know if they haven't said anything, at least I don't think. I wonder if 15 will look a little bit like Sam Show.
You know what? At this point, I would expect it. I don't think Sam Show was bad. I think it was great.
Yeah, it looks good.
I think that if they built on that look, that would be a winning formula. And then if they continue to create great fighting game systems, battle designs on top of that, you might have a winner there. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll already love it. I'll already be all about it. Like, as soon as they drop a trailer for that game, hopefully, you might see me explode.
Just spontaneously combust.
Just explode, man. Like, oh my God.
You know, the one thing that confuses me a bit, and I'd like your take on this as well, but you know how, obviously, we were talking about it. We're currently on this trend in the FGC of we want good online infrastructure, right? So we really are pushing for rollback netcode, right? And you got SNK out there having Code Mystics putting Rollback and Mark of the Wolves and Last Blade 2 and now the Sam Show collection. But their newer games, like, 14 and Sam Show, have, like, atrocious netcode. Like, it's really bad.
I want to say Code Mystics didn't work on the Sam Show collection. That was another company.
Oh, that was
they actually they redid Sam Show 5 SP.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
That's what they did. Yes. But yeah, they're having, Code Mystics do all of these things. And as far as I can tell, they're only going through old games. And like you said, yeah, all these other games that are bigger are not. And even SNK with their mainline games are not.
Yeah. I don't understand.
I would almost say it's because they probably contracted them to do those older games first while they worked on these newer games. And I don't know. I feel kind of cynical saying it, like, oh, maybe they thought we don't need to worry about netcode in these newer games because we're just trying to sell them. And so, in that extent, they succeeded. But as a SNK fan and as a person who has hung out with SNK developers, I would still tell them, you guys need to hire the Code Mystics. Not even hire them. You need to absorb them. Mm-hmm. That needs to be your netcode team for every game you create. Give them all the resources they need. Those guys are creating magic for games that people probably never touched up until that point. I think you would be fools not to do it. I think you'd be absolutely foolish not to have Code Mystics working on KOF 15's netcode.
I really hope so, and I really hope there's some weird decisions that SNK has made. Like I'm a big PC player. Like I don't really like playing on console, and I was really wanting Sam Show to come to PC, and then it came to Epic Store, and I was like, oh well.
Yeah, I mean it's coming to Steam also, but
is it? I haven't seen if it was confirmed or not.
It's coming to Steam eventually. I'm thinking of Sam Show Collection. Sorry.
Oh no, I was thinking 2019 Sam Show.
Oh, you're talking about 7? Okay.
Yeah.
Or I guess it's 8 because if you count Sin, yeah. Yeah, that was weird. I honestly expected it to be on Steam because every other SNK game had been on Steam before, and not only that, they had that huge statement about how they shot down Epic Game Store for that. What was it? They offered them like $1 million or something like that, or 10 million. They offered them something, and they said, "No, we're going to sell 1 million copies without you." And then they ended up going to Epic Game Store anyway. I was like, "Oh, that's weird."
It was very strange. That and the infrastructure for the online. Like, I really hope they can go back and implement rollback netcode, because I mean, shit, if Melee can do it through Dolphin, man, you can do anything now. If Fight of Animals has rollback, you gotta put rollback. I mean,
I'm hesitant to say it because I don't know what they would have to do it. I don't know what Code Mixes is having to do to make those old games work. I'm assuming because they're old games and the ROMs exist independently of their releases before. It's probably easier to implement a rollback structure with those versus a game that was built around a netcode infrastructure like Samurai Showdown 8 and KOF 14 and KOF 13. Those are games that came built in or what custom built in netcode. I don't know if you can rewrite all that stuff, but I'm not one of those kind of technical guys. I'm not a coder, so
yeah, I don't know either. I know I read I think it was like 2 months ago, wasn't confirmed or anything, but they were saying the Undernight team, they were saying that they were open to the idea of implementing rollback to future Undernight iterations. They didn't say they were going to, but they said, well, it's something we're looking into. Kind of like how Guilty Gear was saying.
I mean, that would be awesome if they did, because, I mean, shit.
It's terrible. It's so
changed
bad.
The game.
Yeah. I can't, I love Akatsuki in that game. He's so fun, but I can't play that game anymore. It's just, I just can't.
Just always mashing down. Fuck it.
Yeah. It's terrible, but I just got two last things for you, and we'll wrap this one up. So outside of like SNK related games, right, like Sam Show KOF, you spoke a little bit about before, but what are some other games? I guess the non-rollback, Melty Blood and stuff like that. Like, what are some other games in the landscape right now that you're enjoying?
Call of Duty Warzone. I have been on Warzone pretty hard for the last month, and I originally started out playing because I played FPSs before, but it was never like serious or anything, and it's not serious now. But I got back into it because I could play with my buddies, and we just have a good time, have some drinks, and talk shit, and get killed. And it's a different kind of enjoyment for me. I have been so zeroed in on fighting games for so long that there was a point that I actually didn't play any other kind of game. I didn't play RPGs. I didn't play platformers. I didn't play FPSs. I didn't play anything else. I just played fighting games. And I convinced myself that was all I needed, because I was like, yeah, I'm a fighting game player. What else do I need? I like competition. I like talking about it, and it was true. But when COVID hit and I was kind of faced with the unfortunate fate of having to play those games online for a year, I was like, yeah. And so I just started looking elsewhere. I picked up Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I streamed all the way through that. The game is, I'm still iffy on that game, by the way. Trials of Mana Remake is a much better game in my opinion. I got that, and I played all the way through that. That was a fun game. And I just started rediscovering all these genres of games that I had played all my life, and made me remember why I love video games. I still love fighting games, but I'm kind of back on that I love all games thing, I'm kind of back in that energy where I just want to play everything that looks interesting, and I have time to do it, and I have some disposable income to finally catch up on this backlog of games that I haven't played. So I'm enjoying everything right now, Melty Blood, then it's Fighting Herds, Call of Duty, thinking about playing some new Metroidvania game that's coming out. Beat 'em ups. They had the River City Girls that came out recently. I love that game. Still haven't played a lot of Streets of Rage 4, actually. I want to try to mess with that eventually. And yeah, man, it's actually great. I'm playing everything.
Yeah. Anything on the horizon looked interesting to you? I know we just had that PlayStation 5
Oh,
thing.
geez, yeah, that was actually great, dude. Like a lot of people were talking shit. I'm like, dude, that lineup looks pretty sick. But if I gotta say anything is on horizon currently above all else, Cyberpunk 2077.
Really? Yeah, that's a game. I remember watching that trailer in 2013. I'll be like, this is awesome. But then I saw some gameplay. I was just like, oh, well, it's not really what I thought it was going to be. But I mean, I'm withholding judgment until it comes out, obviously. But
yeah, you know, like I when I saw the trailer, the last E3 trailer they had, where it was like the cinematic one, and I was like, yo, what is this game? Because I had never seen it before that. And I was like, this looks fucking sick. And then I found out it was an FPS, and I was like, you know what? I'm still gonna try it. You know, like it looks that good. I'm still gonna try it. And now that I'm playing FPSs regularly, I'm like, yeah, let's do it, baby.
Yeah, that launch trailer, not launch, but like debut trailer that they had 7 years ago is like one of the most watched trailers of any video game, and it's not even out yet. It's crazy.
Damn, dude. They just delayed it again too, didn't they? Shit.
Oh, they did? Oh, man.
Yeah, I think it got pushed back to like November.
That's rough.
Hey, push it back till it's ready.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what I would say to everybody looking for KOF 15 stuff. Let them take their time on it. Not because we're worried about it being another KOF 14, but because if they don't think it's ready, let's trust that process, because that's the only reason why we're not seeing it is because they don't think it's ready.
Right.
And we want that. Unequivocally, we want that.
What's that quote? It's like a delayed game is great eventually, and a
early release bad game is forever. You know, once it comes out, you can't update it enough to get that first impression back, because it's all about first impressions. And we're not talking about debut trailers. You can come out with a trailer and then it looks better later on, but if your game drops and it looks like shit, and we learned even if it plays well, they ain't coming back.
No, I mean, yeah, look at Anthem right now.
Oh my god, dude. Oh no, I was so sad. I bought the game and I was like, this doesn't look anything like what I've been waiting for.
That's right. The only game that I've seen actually have like a redemption arc in the recent years is No Man's Sky, where it came out, everybody kind of was shitting on it, and then they just kept working on it. They never stopped working on it, and people are just actually like, yeah, actually, it's pretty good.
So that was one of those things where it's like, that team was committed to it, though. Not a lot of teams have the time to be committed to just one game like that.
No.
I think Anthem can do it, though, because Anthem's been their team has been talking about a new update to the game that will change everything about Anthem and how we perceive it. And I'm like, cool. Give me some laser weapons, man. I'm tired of this. Why am I fucking flying around in a mech suit and I'm shooting regular bullets, dude? Like, come on.
Yeah, I've heard that complaint before. My buddies playing that game, they're like, it gets old.
It's just, yeah. And I actually like that game a lot. It was just like, no one else does, and so I'm just playing by myself all the time. But yeah, like it's if KOF 15 comes out when it's ready, when they think it's ready, and they know when a game is ready, I think we'll see something special.
I think they can really make some moves, especially now. It's a perfect time, right? There's not much going on.
Yeah. Oh shit, yeah, that would be great if they just dropped the trailer like next week. Oh
yeah, it would be out. Especially, I mean, I listened to another podcast, and one of the guys, he says, he's been working in the gaming industry for a long time, and he says it doesn't really matter with a new console generation what the launch game is. It's going to sell. People want to try out the new hardware. If you can put out a fighting game at launch, it's gonna sell. So
I think that's why people were kind of disappointed that there wasn't a Street Fighter 6 trailer with the PS5 expose. But at the same time, I don't think a fighting game has ever launched with a console.
I don't think so. Yeah. I don't know. Street Fighter 5 came out that's 2016. Never mind.
Yeah.
All right, one last thing for you, man. This is a question comes from a friend of mine in the Discord. His name is Pringle the One.
Okay.
And he asked, what's the cheapest move you like in a fighting game? And he specified, he's like, I'm talking like dirty.
Oh man, did I like in a fighting game? Man, that's a hard question. Shit. I wish I would have been prepared for that. All right, so I've had a couple in the past that I thought was really cool. Like in Tatsunoko versus Capcom, Ipatsu Man was pretty cheap. He had this thing where he could do a grab reset out of an air combo. So he basically purposely dropped the air combo into a grab reset. I mean, it worked for me.
That's some Squirrel Girls type.
Yeah, I know. I was like, you just couldn't escape it. I was like, oh shit. I think I think fucking Raiden from 13 Arcade was pretty damn cheap. I love the drop kick, dude. That's probably like my number one cheat move ever is Arcade Raiden drop kick, because when you full charge that some bitch and like let it rip, it's either gonna hit or you're safe. And when it hits at full charge, you basically kill the guy. It's invulnerable. It does like crazy damage. You can charge 2 of them and combo into each other. It's anywhere juggle.
Man, that does sound cheap.
Oh, it is real cheap. You could. I think, yeah, you could juggle after a guard cancel, because you would guard cancel out of like somebody, you'd be put into block strings, and you could just guard cancel and then let the drop kick rip, and you get like a full combo.
That's crazy.
I love that shit, man.
That's awesome.
He was so good.
Is there a move you hate getting hit by?
I mean, I hate getting hit by all moves, honestly. It reminds me that I fucked up.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't think there's a ton of cheap moves in the games that I played that I haven't been able to circumvent or understand that why they work. There's frustration for sure.
Yeah.
And I'll say things in frustration like, I don't know why it works that way.
For sure. Well, sick, man. Before we get out of here, I know you have your Twitter and your Twitch and all that. Did you want to plug all that stuff before we get out of here?
Yeah. You can follow me on Twitter at Hellpockets. And if you want to catch my streams, you want to catch me at twitch.tv/GameGoons. And our YouTube is GameGoons TV, where I will be uploading some Melty Blood and Them's Fighting Herds footage.
Nice. Do you what game you're currently streaming? Do you have one, or are you just kind of?
I've been taking a break actually recently, because I finished Trials of Mana, and then all the George Floyd stuff happened, and I honestly felt like it just wasn't my place or the right time to be playing games on Twitch and trying to act like I was having a good time, because I was actually pretty angry about it, and I had a lot to say, and I didn't want that to be the mood of my streams.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like if people want to talk to me about my opinions about that, then they can come to me on social media or find me in person or call me up on the phone. But I don't want to go on my stream where I'm trying to just relax and have a good time and say like, that shit's fucked up. And I knew it was coming, I knew like the moment I got in there, somebody would ask, hey, what do you think of that George Floyd stuff? And I'd be like, what, fucked up. And I would probably go off. And the shitty thing about that though, is that usually when you do that, I don't know how it happens, but you end up attracting some weird ass motherfuckers doing that.
It's always like that, man.
It's like, I don't know how you found my stream, but the one racist guy on Twitch that was trying to watch Trials of Mana right now rolled it into my stream and wants to call me a monkey.
Jesus Christ. The one dude in West Virginia actually found an internet connection.
Yeah, exactly, right? I was like, what the hell? How the hell did I find this? Like I've had that happen several times, and yeah, I'm human. It bothers me, but I'm like, how the hell do I end up attracting these people? Because Game Goons is me, Meta Abe, and Gibby. You got a Middle Eastern guy, you got a Latino, and a black dude. How the fuck do you show up for the black guy stream? Just with the perfect shit to say. Maybe he was just trolling around. I don't know. But yeah, I'm thinking about getting back into streaming this week, because I've spent enough time off. And I've been playing a lot of games, and I think it's probably time to get back into there, because I want to showcase Them's Fighting Herds to a lot of people who probably aren't paying much attention to it, because nobody they know is streaming it. And people have been asking me to stream Melty Blood. People have been asking me just to stream in general. So it's probably a good time. I'm feeling better mentally to do it.
Well, sweet. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have about this podcast. Hey, man, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been really great.
Thank you, man. I had a good time talking, and hopefully I did not take up too much time with filler talk.
No, I honestly, I don't have a time limit for these things. I mean,
that's the best.
I just like talking shop, and if people want to talk shop, they're my type of people, But yeah, I appreciate everybody for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Peace.